This is the tale of Peter Rabbit, read by Grammy for Ariana.
I think we're ready to find out about Peter Rabbit. We are going to read the tale of Peter Rabbit by Beatrix Potter.
Do you see Peter Rabbit in the picture?
Before we do, there's some things that you need to do. First of all, do you have bunny ears? If you have bunny ears, and I think you do, you need to go get them and put them on. Also, if you have a bunny, a toy bunny, a stuffed bunny, go get it and have it with you as we read the tale of Peter Rabbit. I have one, but I don't know where it is. I've looked everywhere. I don't know where it went. So we will read the story of Peter Rabbit without my bunny. The Tale of Peter Rabbit by Beatrix Potter. Once upon a time, there were 4 little rabbits, and their names were Flopsy, Mopsy, Cottontail, and Peter. They lived with their mother in a sandbank underneath the root of a very big fir tree.
Here is Mother Rabbit with Peter and his sisters Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail. Do you see the fir tree? Do you see the sand?
Now, my dears, said old Mrs. Rabbit one morning, you may go into the fields or down the lane, but don't go into Mr. McGregor's garden. Your father had an accident there. He was put in a pie by Mrs. McGregor. Peter's father was put in a pie? Let's not think about that too much. It'll spoil our dinner.
Here is Mother Rabbit with her 4 children. Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail are in red capes. Peter Rabbit, in his blue jacket, is ready to go exploring.
Now run along, said Mrs. Bunny, and don't get into any mischief. I'm going out. Then old Mrs. Rabbit took a basket and her umbrella and went through the wood to the baker's. She bought a loaf of brown bread and 5 currant buns.
Now, why did Mrs. Rabbit buy 5 buns? 1 for herself, 1 for Flopsy, 1 for Mopsy, 1 for Cottontail, and 1 for Peter. That makes 5. Here she is with her umbrella and her basket.
Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail, who were good little bunnies, went down the lane to gather blackberries.
Do you see the 3 bunny sisters gathering berries? Where are their red capes? I think I see one on the ground. Look at those birds. One bird is eating berries out of their basket.
But Peter, who was very naughty, ran straight away to Mr. McGregor's garden and squeezed under the gate. Oh, Peter, Peter, Peter,
There's Peter squeezing his fat body under the gate. I don't think he's supposed to be going through that gate.
First he ate some lettuces and some French beans, and then he ate some radishes.
Here is Peter eating as many carrots as he can. Look at the bird perched beside him. Do you see the big red radish by Peter's right foot?
And then he ate some radishes. But he ate so much. And then, feeling rather sick, he went to look for some parsley.
Oh, now Peter has a tummy ache. Do you see him rubbing his poor tummy? Eating parsley will make his tummy feel better.
But around the end of a cucumber frame, whom should he meet but Mr. McGregor? Mr. McGregor was on his hands and knees planting out young cabbages. He jumped up and ran after Peter, waving a rake and calling, "Stop, thief!" Oh, Peter, Peter.
Oh no, it's Mr. McGregor planting cabbages. Uh-oh, he sees Peter. Do you see the frame for the cucumbers? It's a large wooden box with a glass lid. He ran after Peter, waving a rake and calling out, "Stop, thief!"
Peter was most dreadfully frightened. He rushed all over the garden, for he had forgotten the way to the gate. He lost one of his shoes amongst the cabbages, and the other shoe amongst the potatoes. Oh, Peter.
I see Peter's little tiny lost shoe laying on the ground next to the bird.
Oh, Peter. After losing them, he ran on 4 legs and went faster, so I think he might have gotten away altogether if he had not unfortunately run into a gooseberry net and got caught by the large buttons on his jacket. It was a blue jacket with brass buttons, quite new. Oh, Peter.
There is Peter hanging upside down with his foot caught in the net.
Peter gave himself up for lost and shed big tears, but his sobs were overheard by some friendly sparrows who flew to him in great excitement and implored him to exert himself. That means they told him to get up and get away from Mr. McGregor.
Look at poor Peter's little tear. The birds are saying, "Stop crying. Mr. McGregor is coming. You are in danger."
Mr. McGregor came up with a sieve, which he intended to pop on the top of Peter, but Peter wriggled out just in time, leaving his jacket behind. Oh, he lost his clothes. Oh, Peter.
There is Peter almost caught under the big sieve in Mr. McGregor's hands. Look out, Peter. And there is his blue jacket on the ground.
And he rushed into the tool shed and jumped into a can. It would have been a beautiful thing to hide in if it had not had so much water in it. Mr. McGregor was quite sure that Peter was somewhere in the tool shed, perhaps hidden underneath a flower pot. He began to turn them over carefully, looking under each. Presently, Peter sneezed. Achoo! Mr. McGregor was after him in no time. Ooh, Peter.
There is Mr. McGregor checking under each flower pot. Do you see Peter's ears in the water can?
And Mr. McGregor tried to put his foot upon Peter, who jumped out the window, upsetting 3 plants. The window was too small for Mr. McGregor, and he was tired of running after Peter. He went back to his work.
Watch out for Mr. McGregor's big fat foot.
Peter sat down to rest. He was out of breath and trembling with fright. He had not the least idea which way to go. Also, he was very damp sitting in that can. After a time, he began to wander about, going lippity-lippity not very fast, and looking all around. He found a door in a wall, but it was locked, and there was no room for a fat rabbit to squeeze underneath. An old mouse was running in and out over the stone doorstep, carrying peas and beans to her family in the wood. Peter asked her the way to the gate, but she had such a large pea in her mouth that she couldn't answer. She only shook her head at him. Peter began to cry. Oh, Peter, why didn't you do what your mommy told you to do? Then he tried to find his way straight across the garden, but he became more and more puzzled. Presently, he came to a pond where Mr. McGregor filled his water cans. A white cat was staring at some goldfish. She sat very still, but now and then the tip of her tail twitched as if it were alive. Peter thought it best to go away without speaking to the cat. He had heard about cats from his cousin, little Benjamin Bunny. That is another story.
Look at the 3 goldfish in the water. Do you see Peter?
Peter went back towards the tool shed, but suddenly, quite close to him, he heard the noise of a hoe. Scratch, 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 scratch. Peter scuttered underneath the bushes, but presently, as nothing happened, he came out and climbed upon a wheelbarrow and peeped over. The first thing he saw was Mr. McGregor hoeing onions. His back was turned towards Peter, and beyond him was the gate.
Can you hear Mr. McGregor in his field hoeing? Do you see Peter sitting in the wheelbarrow watching him? And look way in the distance. Do you see the gate? Can Peter reach it?
Peter got down very quietly off the wheelbarrow and started running as fast as he could go along a straight walk behind some black currant bushes. Mr. McGregor caught sight of him at the corner, but Peter did not care. He slipped underneath the gate and was safe at last in the wood outside the garden. Mr. McGregor hung the little blue jacket and the shoes for a scarecrow to frighten the blackbirds.
On the ground, there are 3 hungry, pesky crows. Farmers make scarecrows to scare away the crows from their crops. Mr. McGregor has turned Peter's lost shoes and blue coat into a scarecrow.
Peter, 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 you lost your clothes. Peter never stopped running or looked behind him till he got home to the big fir tree. He was so tired that he flopped down upon the nice, soft sand on the floor of the rabbit hole and shut his eyes. His mother was busy cooking. She wondered what had he done with his clothes. It was the second little jacket and pair of shoes that Peter had lost in a fortnight. Oh, Peter. Peter habitually gets into trouble and loses his clothes.
Where did that rascal leave his coat?
Peter habitually gets into trouble and loses his clothes. I am sorry to say that Peter was not very well during the evening. His mother put him to bed and made some chamomile tea. She gave a dose of it to Peter, 1 tablespoonful to be taken at bedtime.
Here is Mother Rabbit brewing chamomile tea.
But Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail had bread and milk and blackberries for supper. The end. Now, what do you think about Peter? He didn't do what his mother said. He went into Mr. McGregor's garden, lost his clothes, almost got caught. But he did make it home. And his mother just had to say, "You lost your clothes again, Peter." But Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail did not get into trouble, and they had a nice dinner. I think it's better to do what your mother says. Until next time, we'll read another story. Bye.